maybe the best way to set the scene is to open the floor for Nick Tees, the team lead of service delivery and digital government, which who is coordinating these initiatives. As to share a couple of welcoming words. And right after, to Giulio Veneri, that is Deputy Head of Unit in the European Commission in DG NST. And right after that, the word will come back to me so I can also set the scene and introduce the remainder of speakers. Nick.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Bruno, and good morning to all of you, everyone online, and the panelists, but also all the participants. The number is still growing, but we have, as Bruno said, a very nice but also well-filled agenda. So we propose to dive in immediately. Warm welcome again, and we're really delighted to offer again, or to continue to offer this series of webinars. As we went through the list of signed up participants, we noticed a lot of names that are very familiar because we have been hosting these webinars or like webinars since 21, 22. So we've built up quite some series in the meantime. As said, we continue to do this. As you might have seen, this is the first webinar in a series of 6 in total, and that we spread over a year and a half, where we really focus on topics that are, first of all, close to our heart, but also that are very high and important on the agenda, the policy and political agenda in all of your countries. And this is what we also want to do as being the OECD Sigma program. And this is really to continue to support in a multitude of ways the countries with which you are working, in supporting them in this service design, into this service delivery important topic. So I will not take it longer because, as said, we have a nice list of panelists, and I would immediately hand back to you, Bruno. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. I'm looking to Giulio. Giulio, thank you so much for joining today. I think Nick highlighted the importance of the European Commission support and collaboration with the OECD in organizing the Sigma program, and of course the continued collaboration that we have been building to support all the countries in the region we work with. Giulio, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for the floor. Colleagues, it's a great pleasure. Good morning from, for one, sunny Brussels. I'm here, as you can see, with colleagues who are working on the dossier, who are working on public administration reform, and obviously my gratitude to them for supporting and being in touch with you for the preparation of this successful exercise, I'm sure. Look, in my introductory remark, I would like to flag a little bit what we do, why this is important, what we do on the issues that are at stake for the discussion today, how we are supporting partner countries also in these specific areas, and then I would like to spend, although it has been said already, how these kind of platforms are important. But really, I would like in wishing you a successful discussion with many important practitioners, including some colleagues from agencies and line services. I would like also to spend then a moment to reflect on these kind of formats, which have proved to be particularly useful. Now, I was meeting and talking to the colleagues from the PAR team this morning, and I said impromptu when we discussed this panel, I think it's very noble to discuss this issue. I mean, really, it's something that really struck me. So I must commend, first of all, your vision and your commitment to have this panel discussion. And it's noble because this panel focuses on values, core principles of our work. Equality and non-discrimination, dignity and fairness, and most importantly, through this angle, for looking at these values, it also focuses on one important aspect, which is ultimately the relation between citizens and public institutions. And at the hinge of this, there is the issue of trust. So this is for me very important, and this is why in a display of honesty, the first thing that I said to colleagues this morning is that this discussion is noble. So while we know that on paper public services are designed to help and serve everyone, still today, also in Europe, not only in partner countries, we have to be honest and frank. There are for many people barriers that exist, and these affect their everyday life and their institutions with the institutions or their possibility to benefit from certain services. And this is something that has to be addressed. So challenges exist, as I said, across countries and also across EU partners in our near abroad, across enlargement partners and beyond. And ensuring equal public access to public services remains an objective which must be pursued with a lot of determination, both in Europe and beyond, as I said. For our enlargement and neighborhood partners in particular, inclusion and accessibility are part of our engagement. As I said, since this hinge on core EU values and international standards that we promote to be safeguarded. And ensuring compliance also in terms of concrete implementation, tangible results. This is also what stays at the very core when we look at the enlargement work we do of our agenda for EU accession. That is why, as many of you I'm sure already know, under the revised enlargement methodology, we have placed also public administration reform across the fundamentals, so at the heart of the process, so to speak. And the enlargement process, and so also the agenda linked to challenges in the context of PAR, is not only about design of institution or adopting of legislation, ticking the box with the key. We have gone beyond the ticking the box methodology. So now we are really looking at results. We are looking at building institutions that are credible. I already mentioned the issue of trust, of course, by citizens. And also we expect that in Europe and beyond, public services must work for all citizens. And this also has to apply to accountability mechanism. So as a cross-cutting principle, apart from the fundamentals clusters, these topics and issues revolving around equality and non-discrimination also fall under specific chapters of the acquis, which constitute our menu of engagement with countries engaged in accession. For example, accessibility and social inclusion are monitored through elements under Chapter 19 on social policy and employment, Chapter 10 on information and digital policies, and also Chapter 26 dealing with the inclusive education. In this regards, today's topic and the panel that you have gathered highlight how important accessibility and inclusions are for democratic prosperity, both at an institutional and broader societal level. Now, an accessible and inclusive public administration is a concrete expression of European integration in practice. It means ensuring that all vulnerable groups, including persons with disability, can fully access public services, participate also in public life, and therefore be empowered to exercise their rights on equal basis. In this sense, accessibility is both a fundamental rights issue, but also, as I mentioned, more broadly, a governance issue. And I think the strength of today's panel lies exactly in this, in guaranteeing that different perspectives revolving around these two aspects are presented and discussed. So at the end of the day, public institutions that are inclusive are also more transparent. So inclusiveness is not just a myth. It's not just something that we should pay lip service to. Inclusion is something that has to be applied and shared also for the ultimate goal of ensuring that institutions that are truly inclusive are also ultimately transparent, resilient, and, as I said at the very beginning of my speech, trusted. Okay, so I think this is the entry point. Inclusiveness is the entry point. Inclusiveness and non-discrimination is at the entry point to ameliorate the system, to make it more efficient, more effective, and even more transparent, as I said. So trust and social cohesion are essential for sustainability of reforms, and these lie at the core of the EU enlargement agenda and of our engagement with partner countries in the accession process. Enlargement countries are doing uneven progress in their strive to get to Europe. And I have to say that we have seen some being more virtuous on public administration reform, on inclusiveness, but regardless of the recent performances, these topics that I mentioned are for us very high on the agenda, and we maintain these at the very core of engagement with those that they're still striving to guarantee results, but also with the countries, enlargement partners that have been more virtuous. Now, a few words on how we are supporting enlargement partners in these endeavors. As I mentioned, we have made accessibility and inclusion as a political, but also a legal and institutional priority. So through legislation, policy framework, technical assistance, financial supports, we work closely with our partners who are engaged in the enlargement process to promote equal access to public services. Concretely, what this means. We have strengthened institutional support for capacity building. We are improving accessibility standards. We are also supportive on inclusive digital transition, which is no longer a novelty. It's a need. It's a current need. We are investing also in accessible infrastructure. So there's been also quite a substantial work on that. And we are trying to foster also, this is something that is cross-cutting across our engagement with enlargement countries, for meaningful participation of civil society and organization, including those which represent vulnerable groups. And we try to help them as much as possible to make their voice heard and their need heard, and also, most importantly, addressed by those that have the power to do so. Now, in this, we have been together with OECD Sigma, working on enlargement countries, and that's why our partnership is crucial, and we trust that we will continue to have jointly important results. And this very seminar is not for me just yet another webinar, 90 minutes webinar. This is a proof of our strong, long-standing partnership in really focusing on delivering concrete support for public administration in enlargement countries, and also beyond, because since a few years we have, with your help, we have been actually supporting partners in the East and also across the neighborhood. Now, real progress happens, of course, when governments, local authorities, civil society, and citizens work together to identify barriers, to identify risks, challenges, but most importantly, for concrete solution. And I think our partnership hits specifically in this endeavor. Now, to conclude, my words to just wish you a successful day. We will continue to to follow here. I will have to leave in some 15 minutes, unfortunately. But my colleague will make sure to stay throughout the exercise. As I said at the beginning, these kind of exchanges of good practices, learning from one another, these are really valuable. These are not just a 90-minute webinar. This is what makes our work together meaningful, because with these exercises, we can spot the issues, we can spot the opportunities, and most importantly, as I said, we will continue to work together to ease the efforts of partners. Thank you very much. I am sure it's going to be a productive day. I'm looking forward, and I give the floor back to you. Over.
Thank you so much, Giulio, and I will predate your intervention to say precisely that what we really want to explore with this webinar is that, together with a value-driven vision, there is the need for strategic direction to be made, and I really think we will hear many of those insights from our panel. But that strategic direction needs to be matched with concrete actions. And that's where I think your mention about the importance of a continuous progress and the continuous process is important. And I want to mention this to say that this webinar is not the end of the story. We are not going to close this discussion here. Quite on the contrary, the whole goal of this webinar is to address a key issue that, of course, faces its own challenges, but to open up the possibility of a strengthened collaboration that targets the priorities coming or from the area of inclusion and accessibility. And this is extremely important when we are talking about the EU enlargement process or the neighborhood process, where a continuous support from OECD, SIGMA, and the EC, but the whole collaboration with these administrations is something that needs to be perspectived throughout time. And I will profit to say that this is an initiative we expect to generate demand, to generate questions, and most importantly, to open up a safe space where we can exchange and work in a continuous way to achieve improvements. Allow me just to share with you a couple of points that I think are important. As you all know, the OECD SIGMA program is being driven by its principles of public administration. It's a framework of standards that is being used to help EU enlargement administrations not just to assess themselves and to provide relevant data and evidence to inform policies, but also to translate into a very concrete way the way the European Union acquis, the recommendations from the OECD, international standards can be leveraged to support better policies, better services. And I will just show that for the ones who know, this is not coming as a surprise, I will be very brief. The assessments, the monitoring reports the OECD SIGMA program is doing enable us to, together with the administrations, to have access to the situation regarding physical access of public services or accessibility of services for all users, or even the compliance with the standards of web accessibility that exist. And we see, of course, a very differentiated situation across the region we work with. Of course, it's important to have strategic objectives, but again, those objectives need to be matched by explicit actions. Those actions need to be coordinated and, be matching a governance structure, and we can cover all of this. This is areas of work that we have. We also have access, for instance, of indications about how far have we gone in communicating in an accessible way, for instance, using written communication in Braille, and this is probably the indicator where we have more consolidated results about the construction of retrofitting of public sector buildings, or the compliance again with the web accessibility standards that are in use. There is a lot of work to be done. There are important milestones already achieved. What I want to mention is that all of this shows that accessibility covers different levels. Accessibility and inclusion, it can have a kind of holistic vision to approach it. It gathers legislation and standards, of course, but it also requires the existence of governance coordination mechanisms and strong sponsorship to back that direction. And this needs to be translated on, if you want, on the more concrete level of action, on tools, on techniques and skills. That's why it is important to look at the capacity building side of public administration. And when we are talking about these three different layers, we can also look at the way accessibility and inclusion also brings together, let me say, the front office and the back office of public services. Accessibilities require, of course, that we look at the interactions and interfaces with citizens, everything regarding service design in the strictest sense of the word. But it also requires that we look at infrastructure. Broadband network, the kind of networks that we have, the kind of buildings that we have are extremely important. And all of this needs to be mediated, of course, with relevant organizational mechanisms. So, in fact, there are plenty of crossovers in this area. The principles of public administration enable us to get a glimpse of all these different areas. But more importantly, for today, we will have a panel that I think will allow us to cover all these different aspects, to discuss the interdependencies between them, but more importantly, how we should not be overwhelmed by the task at hand, but we can approach it in a systemic and structured way. So it's a great pleasure to me to welcome Astrid Podzia-Lobski, that is Head of Sector from the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights. I'm not going into too much detail because we are going to invite each of the speakers to come up and to introduce us a little bit about the work they are doing and the portfolio of their organizations. I am very, very pleased to have Jorge Iñiguez with us, the Secretary General of ONCE. You probably heard about ONCE's key actor in setting accessibility standards in Spain. We have together with us as well from Spain, Jesus Hernandez, that directs the innovation division in Fundación ONCE and leads the Accessible EU program. It's a very interesting program, supports cross-border collaboration. I will try to highlight how important it is, this initiative as well. And of course, Ana Ortega, that's the head of innovation from Fundación ONCE as well, helping us to get a glimpse of the legislation and the standards, but also of the importance of a comprehensive vision for accessibility and inclusion. We have Inmaculada Plasencia Porrero, senior expert on disability from the European Commission, DG Just, so it's a very important Director General that we have there. And then we have, of course, three colleagues that will come from that are speaking from Ukraine and will share I will say, very impressive results that they've been achieving under a very, very difficult situation, needless to say. And so it's a great pleasure to me to introduce you to Bosena Denisenko, that is the UI UX design lead in the DEI mobile team. So you heard about DEI for sure. Andriy Kostenko, that it's a specialist on digital accessibility, so he works also on state enterprise DIA in the country. And of course, last but not least, Ilya Rodin, the head of software engineering. So we have a great combination between legislation and software, from standards and concrete actions. So we try to kind of cover the whole mosaic of accessibility and inclusion in the public services. And to start with, maybe I can invite Astrid to take the floor and to guide us through the Fundamental Rights Agency and the work you are developing.
Thanks a lot, Bruno. I'm happy to speak a bit about the agency's work that's related to the focus of this seminar. And I prepared slides because I prepared quite a lot of information. So, and they can be shared after that meeting so that you can also read them. Just a second. So you see my screen, and now you see the slides. What I want to do, what I want to talk about is first, I will tell you a little bit about the work of the agency, and give you some links to our work in the area of age and particularly vulnerabilities, which I think is quite relevant for the topic of the seminar. And I know we will have different rounds, and then I do want to talk a bit more about particularly our work on rights of older persons, but also the digital context that we are in, and public services, online public services, what we think is to be considered from a fundamental rights-based approach. You saw two names on the slide. So I'm the head of sector on age and social inclusion, and my colleague Sabine Springer, with whom I prepared also this input, is particularly taking care of our work in relation to older persons. So, but as not maybe all of you are so familiar with the work of the European Agency for Fundamental Rights, we are an independent EU body. We are mandated to work on the full spectrum of fundamental rights as enshrined in the Charter of Fundamental Rights. And of course, there were some key articles already mentioned before. And for example, principles of equality and articles on discrimination. And we are also there to support member states and EU institutions to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill fundamental rights and provide comparable data on fundamental rights issues. And we also work with EU member states, but also with candidate countries, and 3 countries among this group of countries have observer status. So by now, so this is Albania, Serbia, and North Macedonia. So also in our research and our studies, we can include these 3 countries. And we also want to enable decision makers to base policy legislation on robust evidence and independent advice. So one core part of our work is to design and conduct research in member states. We do both legal and social studies. We do secondary analysis. We do primary fieldwork research. We do legal analysis, often in combination. So we talk about the so-called social legal approach. And we have a large research network in member state countries and also these observer countries, and we do large scale surveys. We formulate opinions and conclusions, and we also promote dialogue. So like our contributions to such webinars is very important to us, so that we really raise awareness of fundamental rights issues and really inform also about the work we do, which I also now want to give you a quick glimpse in relation to points that are particularly important for when we talk about inclusion, accessibility to public services. So I do want to point at our surveys, and also below you see there's survey made, like I use my mouse. So the survey data that we have is made available through the Data Explorer on FRA's website. And here's the link. And so you also always can look at, for example, different groups of people by gender, but also by age. And in all our surveys, we always ask, of course, for age, and on our analysis, we disaggregate by age groups. And we always include a part, unfortunately, not the LGBTIQ survey, include the global activity limitation indicator to approach kind of the question of special needs of our participants. And you see that we do look particularly in but groups in particularly vulnerable situations, and also the intersectionality. So we continuously survey the situation of Roma in the European Union. Also, we continuously look into the questions of anti-Semitism, the situation of immigrants and descendants of immigrants, LGBTIQ persons, and also now we had actually also as a new survey, the Violence Against Women survey. We started different age groups in our data. We always, like in Roma surveys, for example, immigration, migrant survey, we do have like data on the whole household, so like also covering like children. But normally we start with 15, 16, or also 18 years of age, and we do not have an upper age limit, but for the violence against women, it was 74 years of age. We do face a bit of an issue because we often can only analyze the older age groups from the age of 50, for example, or 65, because of the sample sizes. So this is definitely something we do want to improve. And we always ask about experience of discrimination, harassment, and access questions to health, education, employment. And we always ask also about trust in institutions, awareness of complaints mechanisms, and also NHRIs and equality bodies to understand where are gaps for different groups of people to really kind of also make use of existing institutions. Here, I will not go into the detail at all, but I want to point, this is a list with links of our work on rights of older persons. I do want to talk a bit later more about our report on fundamental rights of older people, ensuring access to public service in digital societies, as this is extremely closely linked to the focus of this webinar. We do have also a wide range of work on persons with disabilities. I want to point at the latest one. It's where we looked into specifically persons with disabilities in institutions, and also want to mention that we are a member of the EU framework for the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and part of the monitoring networks. And last but not least, and then here I will hand over back to the other panel speakers, is that also we have looked now widely into the fundamental rights based approach towards digitalization and AI, and I also will point at a few points later. So thank you for now, and I'll give back and stop sharing my screen
Thank you so
to Bruno.
much, Astrid, and I'm pretty sure that you enticed people to stay for the second round of your intervention. For now, it's my pleasure to welcome Jorge Níguez, the General Secretary of ONCE. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the invitation. It is a real pleasure to participate in this session and to take part in the conversation focusing design for all inclusion and accessibility in the public service. Topics that are deeply connected to the mission and the daily work of the organization. The ONCE Social Group is a unique social economy group in Spain, composed of three complementary organizations: ONCE, Fundación ONCE, and Ilunio. ONCE work to defend the rights, autonomy, and social inclusion of people with visual disabilities, provide social service, support, and employment opportunities through their lives. Fundación ONCE promote accessibility, universal design, and employment for people with disability, working closely with the public administration, European institutions, and the private sector. And Ilunion is our business group, providing that it is possible to compete and making while planning social impact, accessibility, and inclusion on the one of the business model. Together, these three organizations combine social mission, economy, activity, and long-term social impact. To give you some scale, in 2025, the ONCE Social Group employ nearly 80,000 people, with 60% being a person with disabilities. Likewise, the revenue of the ONCE Social Group in 2025 was around 43 billion euros. This figure reflects not only that we do, but how we do it. ONCE Social Group also play an active role in the promotion of public politics and inclusion and accessibility, supporting compliance with existing regulation and contributing to improving by working with public and private partners and by influence the social agenda to make inclusion and accessibility a priority, encouraging compliance with existing regulation and contributing to their development. At the same time, we are committed to building a more collaboration and forward-looking, inclusive innovation ecosystem, one that allows us to extend this impact behind our organization and work alongside public institutions, companies, and other social actors. From this context, ONCE Innova was created at an institutional level as our innovation laboratory, not as an end in itself, but as a structural capacity to explore, test, and learn before making decisions that impact in people's lives. It has allowed us to innovate with purpose, ensuring that accessibility and inclusion are embedded from the very beginning and validated in the real context. In this session, Jesús Hernández will share the work of Fundación ONCE, particularly through Accessibility U. Ana Ortega, Head of Innovation in ONCE, will explain how ONCE Innova operate in practice through pilot projects and collaborate with public administration, entrepreneurs, and innovation ecosystem. Thank you, and then we can explain some question if you are interested. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Jorge. And indeed, we hope to have some opportunity at the end to collect your questions and to run more bi-directional dialogue with you. In any case, as mentioned, this webinar is not meant to be the end of history. We hope participants to make questions, make suggestions, and we can keep this dialogue going on. Thank you.
Okay.
Immaculada Plasencia Porrero is, as I mentioned, the senior expert in DG Just, and she will tell us a little bit more about the work she has been doing and guide us also through the strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities, a key instrument the European Commission is steering. Immaculada, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Yes, my name is Ima Placencia, as Bruno was saying, and I am a senior expert on disability in the unit of the European Commission that is addressing the rights of persons with disabilities. The main focus of my work is on accessibility, and I will refer to it a little bit later but now I'm going to concentrate on the strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities, because the unit in which we work is the focal point also for the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the EU. As many of you will know, the Union and also all the member states are party to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And with this strategy, the intention is to operationalize the implementation of the strategy. The strategy provides a framework for EU action that it is, of course, to be supplemented by the member states' policies for further progress towards ensuring that persons with disabilities can enjoy their rights and fundamental freedoms on equal manners with others. Now, to do that, and to be able to participate in society like anybody else, the matter of access and accessibility is a priority within the strategy. The strategy has an intersectional approach, addresses disability in all its diversity, and it is also addressing the Sustainable Development Goals and the European Pillar of Social Rights. And mention the European of Social Rights because one of their key areas is about persons with disabilities, and another of those rights is about access to services, and in particular essential services, where accessibility also plays a key role. The strategy contains 8 priority areas: accessibility, enjoying EU rights, and there again we have a strong public service component because of the free movement, because of the participation in democratic participation, and is really important that access and accessibility is mainstreamed there too. We have an area about decent quality of life and living independently. It's about also providing social services. It's about social protection. All of those areas to realize independent living, for example, it's essential again that the services provided by public administrations are fully accessible and inclusive of persons with disabilities. The fourth area is about equal access and non-discrimination. And when I will mention the areas that it's covering, justice, education, health, recreation, safety, you will see the strong component that public administrations have in delivering those services. Yet again, accessibility is an essential component of that. Then we have a section dealing with promoting the rights of persons with disabilities globally. In this area, enlargement is addressed. And again, the union and so not only the Commission, but also the EU delegations and the External Action Service is supporting and promoting that partner countries, in this case enlargement countries, are being helped to implement the convention in all its dimensions. Most of, all of the countries which are in the enlargement process, they are parties to the convention, and the intention of this strategy is also to help them. In that context, also we have a number of tools to deliver the strategy, including a disability platform in which we put together public authorities, the Commission, and also civil society, which is a key element in these developments. And there we have invited enlargement countries to come and discuss with us. I'm finishing just to say that we have an area also leading by example, because we as public administrations also have to deliver and be aligned with the convention. I really raise awareness and having adequate governance. I just would like to invite you to read the strategy and learn from the different chapters, particularly if you are a public administration, by the one on leading by example, and I will be sharing more details in the next intervention. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Immaculada, and I will profit to mention again that not just we will have other rounds to hear from the speakers, but also after the webinar, we will be preparing a follow-up message that will try to gather all these resources that you've been hearing about. Again, we hope this to be an opportunity for a more structured approach to this area and a more structured conversation in this area. And to close this first round, it's my big pleasure, honor to invite Andriy Kostenko to take the floor and share the example of DIA in Ukraine. Andriy, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Andriy, and I'm a digital accessibility specialist. Accessibility is an essential part of our product, and we use the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, specifically the success criteria at levels A and AA. In particular, special attention is paid to the next provisions: contrast, labels and alt texts. Screen reader operability means the ability to control all functional content using a screen reader, correct reading order for screen readers, clarity of statuses and errors, and some other requirements. Let's see these requirements in detail. Contrast requirements apply to texts and non-text interactive elements, such as buttons, links, etc. And a very common issue in our experience was the use of overly light gray text on a white or light blue background, and we have fixed this issue on many screens of the application. It helps people with low vision read text more easily and better perceive interactive elements. A screen reader is a special program used by people who are blind. It allows use of the device and mobile applications without looking at the screen. But mobile applications must meet a number of requirements to be fully accessible to screen readers. We pay special attention to these issues because this topic contains the greatest challenges in our work due to technical complexity of the application and etc. Let's explore some examples. Reading order. It refers to the order in which the screen reader moves from element to element when the user performs the basic gesture one finger swipe right. The basic or default approach means the screen reader moves from left to right, from top to bottom. As you can see in this screenshot, that approach works fine for our section services. But sometimes we have to deviate from the usual course and change this order to improve the user experience. For example, in our national cashback service, we place the button opening the barcode scanner almost at the beginning of the accessibility tree, or reading order, because this feature is essential for users and they can be in need to access it quickly. The next, alternative texts. Alternative texts describe the essence of the image, animation, or other graphical object for people who are blind. And sometimes these can be very useful. For example, you can see this image, and it has a text which translates to English as follows. The ID card is placed face down. At the bottom, a machine-readable number is highlighted with a blue frame and labeled "number to be scanned." So we use this approach to give necessary information for blind users in order to provide understanding of what have to be done. The next, labels. Labels are special texts which describe purpose or function of buttons or links when they are implemented as graphical icons and contains no visible text. We use special programmatic approaches to setting these texts, and they are announced by screen readers. In our case, these are typically buttons such as back, context menu, add one, subtract one, delete, close, settings, and so on. Headings. Texts that function as headings, namely summarizing certain content located below them, should be programmatically marked as headings. This will allow screen reader users to not only hear that it is a heading, but also to switch specifically between headings using a special gesture. For example, some screens of our mobile application show all user input before it is submitted, like this one. If the users who are blind just want to check the entered phone number, they can quickly go to the contact details section using the gesture one finger swipe down. The next is clear messages. All status or error messages should clearly inform the user about exactly what happened, what needs to be done, or what can be done next, and provide appropriate buttons to continue. For example, this message, first of all, informs you of the error's reason, connection interruption to the document. Secondly, gives advice on how to avoid this error, namely, hold the document tightly against the back of the phone and don't move it. And finally, it gives you the option to either try again or stop trying. I've just mentioned some of the accessibility requirements. There are others, such as programmatic indication of the language of a text fragment, clear instructions for input fields, marking input fields as required, availability of subtitles for media content, adequate time limits, and so on. Overall, ensuring and improving accessibility is a constant, ongoing process, as every element added or changed requires careful attention and accurate testing. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Andrew. And I think it's very important to show that right after Immaculada, we can have your presentation, because when we are talking about accessibility and inclusion, we are talking about standards, but those standards need to be translated into concrete options and details when we are developing solutions. So I think it was very, very interesting that we could bring those sides together and show how they should work aligned in an aligned way if we really want to, as I think Julia was saying at the beginning, value-driven principles into very concrete backed solutions. We will stay with the DA example, and I will ask Bosena to share us a little bit more about how DIA is addressing accessibility from a user interface, user experience perspective, looking for the whole cycle of development of the work, implementation and maintenance of solutions. So Bosena, Ilia, the floor is yours. I'm seeing already your presentation, and thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm design lead at the DIA app team in Ukraine, and today, one moment, and today I'd like to share how we approach inclusion and accessibility in digital public services from a UI and UX perspective. When people talk about accessibility, they often think only about interface compliance, font size, contrast, or screen readers. But in public services, accessibility starts much earlier. Sometimes it means not needing to travel across a city to submit a document. Sometimes it means avoiding long queues or complicated paperwork. And sometimes, in the context of displacement, it means being able to access essential government services from anywhere, directly from your phone. When we started building DIA, the vision was ambitious, to create a state in a smartphone. But from a design perspective, it also meant something deeper. Public services should adapt to people, not people to bureaucracy. That is why one of our core principles is human-centered design. We don't see people as just users, we see them as individuals with real-life context, needs, and pain points. We design services around real-life situations rather than around institutional structures. For citizens, it should not matter which ministry owns a service or how government systems are organized internally. People think in life events, losing a document, changing a driver's license, opening a business, or sharing documents. Our role as designers is translating institutional complexity into understandable human journeys. And because citizen needs constantly evolve, we continuously collect and analyze users' feedback to improve flows, interfaces, and service clarity over time. For us, accessibility is not a final checklist. It must be embedded into the product thinking from the very beginning. Our second principle is what you see is what you get. Public services can often feel intimidating. People may worry about making mistakes, losing information, or misunderstanding the process. That is why transparency and predictability in the interface are extremely important. Citizens should always understand where they are, what is happening, and what comes next. In DIA, we try to create interfaces that feel clear, calm, and trustworthy. This includes consistent interaction patterns, simple language, clear statuses, predictable navigation, and understandable next steps. When users clearly understand how information is generated or retrieved, it reduces uncertainty and fear of making mistakes. As designers, we pay special attention to reducing cognitive load, and this is where a strong design system becomes especially important. Consistency is not only about visual quality. Consistency is also an accessibility tool. When patterns behave similarly across services, users spend less mental effort learning their interface and again. This becomes especially important for people under stress or citizens interacting with government services in difficult situations. Good accessibility is not only about helping people use a product, it is also about helping people feel confident while using it. Our third principle is elegance on the surface, complexity under the hood. Many public services involve enormous technical and institutional complexity, multiple registries, security requirements, legal constraints, different edge cases, and large-scale integrations. But citizens should not feel this complexity during interaction. Good public service design is often invisible. The user should not need to understand institutional architecture or technical dependencies in order to complete a task. And usually, the simpler the experience looks, the more coordination exists behind it. For us, inclusion and accessibility is not separate features added at the end of development. They define how government should behave in the digital age, because when digital public services are designed well, they do more than save time. They reduce stress, they increase independence, they create equal access, they help build trust between citizens and the state. And our final principle is we don't just digitize chaos. Digitalization alone does not automatically create accessibility. If a process is confusing offline, it will probably remain confusing online. Many digital public services simply move bureaucracy into a PDF or an online form without simplifying the actual experience. In DIA, we try to rethink the journey itself. Our goal is not only to digitize processes, but also to reduce unnecessary complexity for citizens. This means reducing the number of steps, eliminating duplicated actions, automating data verification where possible, and hiding technical complexity behind simple interactions. A citizen should not need to understand how state registers work in order to complete a service successfully. One of our key ideas is that complexity belongs inside the system, not in the citizen's experience. And achieving this simplicity requires collaboration far beyond UI design between designers, developers, analysts, legal teams, and government institutions, because good government UX is not only interface design, it is a service design. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Posina. There are so many key topics that I could highlight, but I will just flag this last one about the importance of bringing together different organizations, different expertises, so we can have an holistic approach to accessibility that entails legal dimensions, but also very technological components. So I think it was a very good illustration how we can do that in practice. So expect our audience to make questions. Of course, time is always a concern, so I will again call for the goodwill of the remaining speakers to stick to the timing. Immaculada, the floor is yours. You promised already to come up with very substantive contributions at this turn. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen to show you. I have prepared some slides. For the sake of time, I will be brief, but the slides will be distributed afterwards. Let me start by saying that now I'm going to answer your questions about accessibility. What are we doing on accessibility? How can we facilitate your work in compliance with the EU accessibility legislation? Just to say that the accessibility is really intrinsically linked to the concept of disability, because it is about the removal of and the prevention of the barriers that face persons with disabilities in interacting with products, services, and infrastructure. If I would to leave you with one slide, is about this concept in the CRPD, in the convention, which it is about equal access. Accessibility is just an instrument, one of the instruments for equal access, that together with reasonable accommodation deliver that equal access. The strategies for design are a way of delivering accessibility. The importance of accessibility is that it is a technical matter that is measurable and that contains concrete results that can be monitored and when after implementation. And it caters for the main barriers that persons with disabilities have. Now, going to EU law, let me say that we have plenty of accessibility legislation. We have thematic legislation, for example, in the area of transport. We have there also on telecommunications, on audiovisual media service. We have horizontal legislation like the European Accessibility Act and the Web Accessibility Directive. And we have funding-related legislation. Accessibility is an obligation on public procurement and on structural funds. Now, Let me just focus for a second on what the European Accessibility Act requires. On one hand, it puts accessibility to a number of careful selected products and services. On the other hand, uses the same accessibility requirements for facilitating implementation of EU law like public procurement. We're talking about telephones, computers, ATMs, equipment, services, consumer banking, e-book, e-commerce. Which administration is not delivering e-commerce today? Which administration does not have a website with information or delivers publications? So please, I don't have the time to enter into the detailed content of the act, but this is a major element. The other major instruments in EU law in relation to public services, in addition to also the Web Accessibility Directive that is targeted to public sector bodies. By the way, both directives, the European Accessibility Act and the Web Directive, use exactly the same accessibility requirements as set in the annex. We aim to harmonize the market. We aim to simplify for technical implementers that need to know what is accessibility, and having the same requirements facilitate this work. Now, two key instruments I mentioned, public procurement and funds, EU funds. We have accessibility obligations on both, and once more, we can also use in their implementation the same than for the Act standards. We have developed standards, European standards, in the area of ICT, in the area of the built environment, in the area of design for all. These standards provide presumption of conformity with EU legislation, and it's really important. I know that there are many standards mentioned, the Web Accessibility Directive, national standards, DIN standards, ISO standards. Please be conscious that we are linking European standards with EU law, and these standards contain similar and I would say the same provisions than the Web Accessibility, which was a standard which was the source of inspiration for this, and there is a direct link. So please use these standards when you are implementing accessibility in your legislation and in your practices. We have 3 new standards on the way, one on non-digital information, accessibility, the other one on support services, and one on emergency communications, really essential for this. To finish, just to say that we launched and financing Accessible EU Center to support the implementation and provide trainings. Jesus will tell you about it, so I will not enter into more detail. And also to say that we are also rewarding those that fulfill best accessibility, and an example is the Access City Award, where cities that take remarkable initiatives on accessibility get an annual award, and I encourage you. We're going to be seeing how to better involve also enlargement countries. It's not yet the case, but please keep an eye on this. And with this, I finish, conscious of time. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Immaculada, for making the narrative so tight in a short time. And we are going to take very seriously this last mention about opening up the door for EU enlargement countries to participate in some of the initiatives you mentioned. You even make easier for me to hand it over to Jesus by mentioning Accessible EU program. Jesus, can you tell us, as lead of this initiative in particular, a little bit more about the relevance that the legislation and has, the challenges, the opportunities it brings at the national level, based of course on your experience at the ONCE Foundation and the program you lead. The floor is yours, of course. You just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bruno. Thank you very much for inviting me at this webinar. I am very happy there are a lot of people interested on accessibility, and this is a very good thing. I am here with 2 hats, 2 roles. One of the Director of Accessibility Innovation at Fundación ONCE, and the leader of the project, Accessible EU. As Inma said, is is a project of the European Commission. It was launched in 2022. We have been working in this project 3 years and a half. The main activities of this center, the Accessible EU Center, is a resource center. The main objectives, the main goals, is to help the countries to implement the accessibility law in the different countries. And we are working in 4 pillars. And this Inma explain the different laws in the European Union, and we are helping in these different laws and different pillars. We are working on transport, we are working on built environment, we are working on digital, on ICT, and we are working on policies. As I said, the Accessible EU is a hub, it's a knowledge hub, it's a center of resources, and our main activity is focused on training experts on accessibility, because the European Commission is aware that there are a very important lack of experts on accessibility all around Europe and maybe all around the world, I think. So we are training experts on this field in the different pillars that I said, in transport, built environment, policies, and ICT. And we have been trained around 65,000 professionals in this field in these 3 years and a half. The events, courses. Now we have open 3 online courses. One online course is on transport, accessibility to the transport, on ICT and built environment. So I encourage all of you to disseminate these online courses. You can find in the webpage of Accessible EU, and you can enroll to these courses. Next month in Ireland, we are organizing an event on transportation and accessibility to the transport, June the 9th. So I encourage you to enroll to this course. We are working with different associations of organization, especially focused on in business areas. For example, in banking, last year we organized an event with the European Banking Federation. It was very, very interesting event with the presence of the Commissioner Albuquerque. We are working also, this is from Fundación 11 with the European Central Bank, to make accessible the euro digital, the digital euro. And we are working with the interface of the app. We are working also, for example, with the International Union of Public Transport, with UN Tourism. We are working a lot. We have organized 2 events. I would like to say accessibility is also important, incorporate in the mainstream. Talk about accessibility and competitiveness, because it's not only about rights. In my talk about the rights of persons with disabilities, but in the mind of the businessman, businesswoman, is to make money, and they can make more money if their products and services are accessible. Let me share a short video about accessibility and what is accessibility.
I really hope it to be brief, Jesus. Otherwise, we can simply share it. We can share it also in the follow-up email if you prefer.
Are you seeing?
Sawtooth shapes.
We are.
Yes. Until it becomes a straight horizontal line. Voiceover on top of text appearing on screen.
Working together to build a more accessible European Union requires communication that is equally accessible. Let's get started. What defines accessible EU? We are the facilitators, the ones who promote it, the ones who help make it possible. And there is a word that facilitates action, that allows you to do something. A word that, interestingly, is found in our very own brand, the suffix able or ible. It indicates the capacity to receive the action of the verb. B-L-E, bull.
The line creates illustrations.
Bull means tendency, aptitude, skill, or ability to do or be something. And this is our idea, B-L-E, bull. It defines the capacity we want to build to make things practicable, livable, suitable, workable, etc. Bull. It is the engine to ensure that people enjoy and participate in society with full rights and opportunities. Our call to action. Bull. And all communicated in a way that is relatable, understandable, approachable, reliable, agreeable, sensible. Accessible EU. Let's make it accessible. More bull and less blah blah.
Accessible EU image posters and their placement in urban settings are shown. Their design is clean and clear. Each is split in two, contrasting inaccessible elements with their accessible versions. One shows stairs with the word unlivable, contrasted with a lift labeled livable. Another shows a toilet under unsuitable, next to an adapted toilet labeled suitable. The third shows a door with a Greek sign above it, incomprehensible. Next to it, a door with pictograms for a mixed accessible toilet labeled comprehensible. The last poster features a jagged line under impossible. Beside it, the line is straight and horizontal, possible. The posters are displayed on building facades and in public transport stations. Voiceover on the text appearing on screen.
Accessible EU. Let's make it accessible.
The Accessible EU Centre logo is displayed.
Thank you so much, Jesus. We can, of course, then share the video as well. Conscious of time, I will thank you again very much and hand it over to Astrid to take the floor back. I will call for our colleagues in the last one to make it a snapshot of their work with the expectation that we can continue this conversation later and, of course, share the materials you have prepared via email. It will be really, really great if we can manage to fit into the time we have. Astrid, please.
Thank you. So I understood from the second round, it's also kind of about a certain which context we do think is particularly important to look into. And so I do want to point at the situation of older persons. And again, I will share my screen. Thank you. Because if we talk about what are key topics that are deserving attention when we talk about kind of inclusion, accessibility in public administration, of course, we know the biggest risk are in relation to public services, or one big risk is digitalization and the issue of having maybe no internet access, not the respective skills, not the device. So I also want to point that's often an issue for people living in more rural areas. It's also, I want to point at the situation of Roma, for example, because throughout our research on Roma, we do see that this is also a really big challenge, of course, with persons with disability, but also older persons. And to point at kind of some data, we know about the aging population. We do expect by 2050 that 30% of the population are over 65 years of age. And we also have the targets of the European Union Digital Decade that by 2030, 80% of 16 to 74 years old should have at least basic digital skills. But if we look at data, for example, from 2021, at the moment, we're talking about for the older age group of 25%. So this is really still a long way to go. We also have targets of the European Union Digital Decade Policy Program, where it says that 100% of the key public services shall be online and 100% e-health records available. So also here we do have still a way to go. For example, in our survey and other survey data, it shows that, for example, in the older age group, 38% have been in contact with public services using the internet in the last 12 months. So, and also, as I said before, we do have always a bit the issue with the age groups that over 74 years of age, the data gets more and more sparse. And of course, we have to consider more and more also older age groups in such type of data presentations. Immaculada already also talked about the European Pillar of Social Rights, and the European Declaration on Digital Rights and Principles underline the principle that no one should be left behind. But there is a high risk that digitalization of public services may not ensure equal enjoyment of fundamental social rights for older persons and, of course, other vulnerable groups. But I also want to point at, as we talk about design for all, we do talk about kind of when we have heard very interesting examples already, what can we do? And so in our report, we particularly structure around these so-called different levels of digital divides. So to overcome the first level of the gray digital divide is to have the access to the infrastructure, the devices, and also that they're affordable. So we have always in our reports these promising practices. Here, for example, I point at the Slovakia's recovery plan to distribute senior tablets to people older than 70. Then also examples of overcoming the second level digital divide is to have the skills, the interest, the training to use the internet and to be kind of really able to participate equally in the digital world, which includes also online public services. So one interesting example is, for example, from in Italy, that they have been building up a digital academy to provide with educational material and so that digital solutions become accessible to people of all backgrounds. And also other countries use public libraries in promoting digital literacy and providing the necessary resources for older persons to acquire digital skills. These is the kind of an overview of different areas where it's important to kind of improve the situation or kind of really work on it, and also the kind of taking promising practice as an example to also learn from for another context. And the third digital level divide we talk about is like the inequality of outcome and the importance of empowering users, as we also heard, kind of the importance that users work on the development of these tools and material. We have here one example from Cyprus of a so-called digital service factory that aims at enhancing citizens' quality of life by providing 100% of public services online in a user-friendly, efficient, and effective way. And the citizens with diverse backgrounds are involved. Back then, when we will be involved, but it's kind of the process right now throughout the design process to ensure the greatest possible usability. I do also want to point at some work we do with regard to persons with disability and the question of reasonable accommodation, which was also mentioned earlier. So I also want to point this as another important topic and would like to flag that we are cooperating with Eurofound on an EU survey about living and working conditions across Europe. And this year's survey includes a dedicated section focusing on persons with disabilities and carers to capture their experiences in requesting and receiving a reasonable accommodation at work. So also here you have the link. So we would also ask you to answer the survey and also share it with your networks, because then it's really possible to learn more about the real situation of persons with disability to have access to, for example, reasonable and affordable accommodation. So I hand over to my other speakers and to Bruno first.
Thank you so much, Astrid. Again, thank you so much for your concision and again, to insist on this logic that we work with a process-based approach also to this process. Before jumping to the last round, a couple of notes from our colleagues at the OECD. As you are very much aware, the OECD presented in 2024 the OECD recommendation on human-centered public administrative services. That work, that very important legal instrument is being steered by the unit that Arnaud Pertet leads, is the team lead in this team that really follows up closely the OECD work on services. Just to give you a contact point on the work that is being developed on this also a very important topic very quickly, Arnaud, and then we will hand over to the final round.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, colleagues, for the very interesting presentations. And again, please allow me to say that the OECD recommendation in 2024 that was adopted by all member countries really focuses on human-centered public administrative services, which means developing services that are accessible and designed for all users, including people with a situation of handicap. That's very important. What we observe in OECD member countries, but also in non-member, is that increasingly there are legal frameworks that have been set up and that are meant to answer and to push administration to answer to the needs of people with situation of handicap. So that's a very important development. However, and that will not be a surprise, we see a big gap in implementation, meaning as the previous speaker said, in the training of agents, in the design and digital accessibility, and also in measuring and taking into account the needs. Noting that, of course, it's a population with a various diversity of needs. So this is probably where we are trying to focus now our work. We do see a number of countries that have made impressive efforts in this regard. I will not cover those mentioned today, but I will mention indeed, for instance, Canada, Portugal have also made significant efforts in pushing all administration to have services that are digitally accessible, but also more and more in person. Maybe a word just to say that indeed, I'd like also to emphasize that the case that was shown by our Ukrainian colleagues and they are particularly impressive, especially noting the very challenging context of Ukraine. And that comes a lot because a number of investments were made earlier on. And I'd like again to congratulate them for their very impressive resilience and continuous delivery of public services to people in situation with handicap, despite the context. So again, big congratulations to DIA and Ukrainian colleagues. And looking forward to working with you. We, for instance, have currently an initiative with Tunisia. Tunisia has a strong legal framework, and now they want to make it more into practice and also to train better agents. That's an example of a support Sigma and us are providing. So thank you very much for this very important webinar on a very crucial thing. Back to you, Bruno.
Thank you so much, Arnaud. I really think it's important to show the importance of the work that Sigma from the OECD is being doing and this combination of important contributions that both the European Commission and of course OECD and other organizations have been providing. For the last round, again, very short interventions from your side. I am seeing that we are getting with a very small time for questions and answers. In any case, I will invite you to share any questions you may have with us, and we will do our best to reply it in the follow-up message as much as possible. Immaculada, if you can spend, I will say 1 minute, even if I know it's a very unreasonable proposal from my side.
Yes. So, well, just to say that in May this year, a couple of weeks ago, we adopted the enhanced strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities, which is meant to advance on the implementation of the strategy that we adopted in 21 with a ceiling or a target date of 2030. In that strategy, we made many references to public services and the access to services, the equal enjoyment, including the reinforcement of the digital government strategy that focus on these public services. The enhanced strategy maintains the same objectives as the previous one and contains, as I say, actions related to public services, whether they are e-government services or they are participation in related democratic participation services, community-based services, and so forth. With the 1 minute, I just want to invite you to read the strategy and reflect that services, public government services, are really essential to achieve the objectives of the Act and cannot be done only by the European level. We need really all your countries, administrations, but also all persons with disabilities and experts to work together. With 1 minute, this is what I can tell you. Thank you.
It's quite an important message. So I really think this collaborative work is key, and Ilya will tell us a little bit more how this collaboration also happens on the ground in Ukraine, how implementation can be informed by accessibility as a key principle. Ilya, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for inviting me and my team to this event. And if we're talking about our cooperation with our partners, our popularity is our the best promoter. So biggest part of Ukrainian population, more than 2 million unique users per day, majority part of whom are active part of our Ukrainian population. All of this make us an ideal platform for providing public services. But to be our partners, it's beneficial for public and private organization. But what it means for to become our partners, you need to be meet with our standards of quality, technological stack. Although we are quite flexible here, user experience, design, and of course accessibility. For that, we have developed SLA, Service License Agreement, for our partner services. In SLA, we describe the rules by which partner services must operate if they want to be part of the DIA ecosystem. The SLA also include rules of interaction between DIA and partners, expectation for both parties, etc. But I would like pay your attention on the fact that it's not a standards, it's not a regulatory, it's not something which to do with official government legislation. This is only rules for interaction between third-party services and the state ecosystem. But we did not limit ourselves just to written SLA. We also have development a whole set of documents, electronic artifacts, tools for help our partners quickly adopt to our ecosystem and been implementing their services within our ecosystem. And currently, onboarding of our partners takes between 2 and 4 weeks. We also built a dedicated team of high-level specialists who can conduct workshops, provide consultation, make code review, visual design review, flow review, and of course accessibility review of our partner services, which they want to implement. And all of this allow to our partners to gain a representation of their services in our ecosystem. For DIA, it's provide for our users more services which the required level of quality and stability. And for our users, it will the way for receive new services faster with familiar approaches to organizing their user experience and high level of accessibility, of course. So everybody wins. And as a conclusion, I want to say that you must be must be example for others, so the others strive to follow your example. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ilya, and again, congratulations for the work that you and your team are doing. I also will profit to mention that in the backstage of this event, we have a lot of colleagues making it possible. My colleagues Tatiana and Ilana on the OECD Single Program, but also Elena, Vanessa, and all the colleagues from the European Commission played a major role in setting this event. So thank you so much, and I really want to acknowledge the colleagues that are not so visible for the moment. Astrid, final comments on the importance that accessibility and human rights-based approaches have for the emerging technologies, including, of course, artificial intelligence right now. You just need to unmute yourself, sorry.
Sorry. No, so thanks. I'm sorry, a bit over time. I did want to stress, as you just asked me, kind of the approach that we have to assess kind of digitalization developments and AI developments from a fundamental rights-based approach. And I want to stress the importance. And it means always to analyze everything that from the base on the grounds of human rights, and to really give specific attention to people in situations of vulnerability, to non-discrimination, and to participation, to accountability and monitoring. And these are key principles of a human rights-based approach in our work. We do this. I will share also links to some work on digitalizing justice, which is also an important area when we talk about access to public services, and also AI, where we also really always kind of have seen kind of the bias in algorithms, which make it really important to apply this human rights-based, fundamental rights-based approach, because often the bias is more indirect, for example, via health status or age, and leads to really discriminatory algorithms. And what we also did is to see which areas are particularly high-risk AI areas, which areas are very sensitive and where we really, this human rights-based approach is particularly needed. And we identified in our work asylum procedures, education, employment, law enforcement, and access to public benefits. So also to kind of just stress the importance of these areas for the discussion here in this webinar. And finally, there was also, in our preparation, there was the question, why is this necessary? What is the impact of a human rights-based approach? And we really can see that through these procedures of involving people to really analyze and to make sure that the monitoring is taking place, that leads really to better performing technology through these feedback loops, also to kind of test bias, do bias testing. And also this leads to builds up public trust. And this was mentioned right at the beginning, that this is so important for really good public administration, that the citizens trust also the tools and the innovation and the developments, the technical ones. And also it means, of course, legal certainty for businesses when you follow human rights-based approach. So with this kind of closing, the main area that we can contribute as a fundamental rights agency. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much again, Astrid. And this only shows that we have plenty of other topics to discuss associated with this one. And that means, that, again, that this should be perceived as a starting point or a seeding event. We are already over time, but I really want to thanks to the colleagues that are sharing the questions in the chat or the Q&A window. If not possible to answer them, it won't be possible, to be honest. We can try to follow up later. Please answer also the link with the assessment or feedback survey that we prepared. We really want to get your insights on this. And to close very briefly the session, before I close very briefly the session, I will hand it over to Ana Ortega, that works on the Innovation Lab of the ONCE Foundation. I really think it could be interesting to tell us a little bit about how these novel approaches are being weaved together across the ecosystems, and how do you ensure these innovations, if you want to call it, the next step for accessibility can constantly address the needs of people with disabilities. Ana.
Thank you, Bruno. I'm working on the innovation laboratory in ONCE. Jesus is the one working in ONCE Foundation. And thank you very much. I'm going to really briefly explain how we work in ONCE Innova, which is the innovation laboratory of ONCE I was mentioning. This is a place, our purpose is to help the organization and our partners in different sectors to address complex challenges through experimentation, learning, and evidence-based decision-making. And of course, always with accessibility and inclusion at the core. From an institutional perspective, this laboratory approach generates clear internal and external benefits. At the internal level, the lab provides the structured space to experiment without putting session services at risk, and also allows the organization to get new approaches to the traditional partnerships that we have, both in private and public sector, and also to open to non-traditional partners, such as startups, scale-ups, and the innovation ecosystem. On the experimental side, we open the possibility for the areas to test solutions early, understand real user impact, and learn from that before committing to scale. And also, this reduces the uncertainty and supports better governance decisions and helps move from assumptions to evidence. We have internal innovation programs as well, in which affiliates, so people receiving the services from ONCE and the workers on ONCE can provide innovation proposals and get to pilot these proposals. Of course, some of them including accessibility or even our own services improvements. No, also on the external side, we see a great impact since the laboratory model enables institutions to explore new approaches and more collaborative and co-creation approaches with ONCE in many regards. And in this case, in this specific side, we share resources and knowledge to engage with innovation ecosystems, public sector and private sector in a structured and purposeful way. And we are as a connector and enabler, translating ONCE's needs, including social, into testable use cases and connect institution innovators and users around concrete challenges. It's relevant to highlight that we have an ONCE Innova community formed by almost 500 persons interested in innovation. They could be persons receiving our services or working with us. So, and they contribute with their knowledge, and also they co-create in these programs. So when we have a collaboration with a public institution, we bring real users into the discussions to share this kind of knowledge, like their day-to-day lives. So we have a more flexible and collaborative arena in order to create this kind of interactions. I'm going to illustrate you with a couple of examples of this kind of collaborations. Last year, we participated in the Desafía program. This is a program of open innovation from the Council of Madrid. We are in close collaboration with their innovation departments, and this program basically was created to tackle challenges from corporates, third sector, or even their own departments with open innovation with the startups. So basically what we did in ONCE Innova, we brought a matter that is on the agenda of ONCE with the public sector, which is the indoor navigation and all the user experience in the hospitals, or in this case in the small offices of the Centros de Salud, we call it in Spain. So we created this collaboration with this project. We scouted startups, and basically we piloted this indoor navigation solution in a real premises in Madrid, in the Centro de Salud of San Blas. So showcasing that this is possible and bringing real users into the equation, and also our technical knowledge. It's important to remark that we just contribute to the work that our colleagues in the social part of ONCE do in their day-to-day life, in the day-to-day work. Also, in relation with the knowledge sharing with public impact, we created a bootcamp for our open innovation programs, sharing knowledge, and I've been working together with Jesus in this as well, with Fundación ONCE, for example, in MadBlue, or like in South Summit, in any big events or innovation events, bringing all the knowledge in order to get like the public to understand how they can implement accessibility principles in their solutions, because many times we see that it's not that they, for example, in the startups, it's not that they don't want to do it, it's just that they don't know how to do it or what it is, as simple as that. So we create this kind of like knowledge skills, if you want to say, so we can spread the word and we can create also knowledge on that regard. And then we have made some open innovation exercises, for example, with the City Council of Valladolid, with regards to sustainable and accessible mobility. We've created an open innovation session in which we brought together entrepreneurs, we brought together the public services, mobility organizations, both public and private, and our own affiliates, people from our centers. So we brought together all the stakeholders that need to be sitting together to tackle common needs and common challenges that we face in a more collaborative way. It's important to remark this kind of, like soft, experimental, and collaborative exercises that basically brings up like a more constructive a conversation in our side. And the last one I want to share is a collaboration that we did with IE University and AWS. That finally we brought to the university the persons from the social services department in ONCE, explaining to the students how is the day-to-day life of a person with disabilities, and this ends up with a collaboration with AWS and our Center of Typhlo Technology and in ONCE that ended up with a new feature in Amazon, in the new Alexa Plus, in order to know how to dress in the morning. So just to bring a hint of the kind of collaborations that we make also with private stakeholders, but gets like public impacts. I don't know. I want to stop here so we can get all the questions, and we are on time, Bruno. And if you need me to get any further in any of these topics, just let me know.
Thank you so much. I really think you put it. I think it's natural that we all feel the urge of coming strong to this area. It's an area that I think right from the beginning, Gillo has said that that's a very noble area that calls for our engagement. So we really feel that we should bring our best, all we know, all we have done to this conversation. I really appreciate that. I'm also conscious of time, so in that case, what I will suggest is to thank you all, thank the speakers for coming, for sharing their experience, inviting them to stay tuned for follow-up work with us, with, of course, the colleagues that were part of the audience today. I want to thank very much the audience for staying with us 14 more minutes than expected, to joining so generously the conversation. I will invite you to answer, of course, the feedback form that we prepared. And who knows if you won't find other webinars in the series that also interest you. So take a look at the webpage I shared. Maybe you can join, maybe you can contribute to that conversation yourself. From Anna, I will retain this message. It is important to develop design services for users, but also with users. And this is, I think, it's a very important call for us to work together with users across the ecosystem, bring our best again to address these important challenges and grasp the opportunities that are out there, be it the European Commission guidelines and legislation, be it the emerging technologies that, for instance, our Ukrainian colleagues and industry that just mentioned it. Once again, thank you so much for staying with us. Stay tuned for this webinar series for the other OECD Sigma activities. Thanks so much for everyone that make possible this webinar. A true privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a nice day.